Hey soldiers, world leaders like France's Emmanuel Macron are on record as saying the era of abundance is over.
I can't believe you say no funky shit like that.
Now, of course, he means it's over for us, not him. But we're seeing exactly what he means when we look at Europe's energy situation. We've got Polish people lining up for coal. We've got 10,000 euro bills, and that's on the euro is roughly on par with the dollar. So to put it in perspective, we've got $10,000 bills coming in to some of the people in Europe. We also have the Germans, the most technologically advanced country in Europe. We've got the Germans being told to chop wood to the point where they are going out and clearing large swaths of forest area in order to just heat their homes.
If you insist.
How's that for your green agenda? Cutting down all those wooded areas, right? All right, so this is what we're seeing with regard to energy. Now, the next shoe to drop is the food shortage. We've got an energy shortage. We're getting ready to have a food shortage. We showed you how the energy shortage is actually affecting the production of food and even the financial sector. So we see this whole thing breaking apart. Now, we've had Klaus Schwab explain to us that there needs to be a reset. This is not conspiracy theory. Let's hear from Klaus himself.
I just see the need for such a dialogue, and I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
Okay, let's also hear from Justin Trudeau. He is a World Economic disciple, acolyte, and he's in there with that group and is firmly on the agenda. Let's hear from him.
Canada believes that a strong, coordinated response across the world and across sectors is essential. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
All right, and we are seeing in microcosm with the Netherlands the result of these dangerous new policies and as they relate to the production of food. Guys, here's a picture of some butternut squash that we're bringing up out of the ground. This is from my property. Now listen, I told you it doesn't matter if you have acres of and acres upon acres of your own. That's fine. If you don't, get with a community garden. If you got a big family, lease space at several community gardens. It's very, very inexpensive. Start producing your own food. And yes, it's not too late. You can put certain foods in the ground right about now that are, more acclimated toward the colder weather. Okay, so look into it. You've got to be able to secure some of your own calories. You've got to be able to put yourself in a position to trade. Now, some of these squash are going to go to a gentleman who has an abundance of green beans on his property. He doesn't have too much luck with squash, so we're going to do a little barter, okay? These are the things that we've got to start thinking about as we get further and further into the problem of food scarcity. And if you do these things and you take control to the extent you can, you'll be a happy camper.
Call me Big LA, Big Silly, Big Money.
All right, so let's go down the list here and take a look at some of the indicators that tell us quite clearly that a food shortage is impending. Now, keep in mind as we go through this that what does not happen now with regard to food production is going to have an effect downstream into 2023. All right, so this is food we're talking about, especially when we're talking about, vegetables, fruits, livestock. That stuff takes time to mature. All right, the hard red wheat crop in the United States of America has been the smallest since 1963. So this current crop is the smallest since 1963. But keep in mind, we had a much smaller population in 1963 than we do today. We had 182 million people, and right now we have over 320 million people. Also, keep in mind, Ukraine is a large wheat exporter. So is Russia, and their exports have been disrupted for obvious reasons. So we're looking at higher prices in America, and in some places, the inability to get these wheat products to begin with. We got the rice harvest in California. It's going to be half of what it would be normally. The U.S. tomato harvest will come in at just 10.5 million tons in 2022. That is over a million tons lower than a normal year. This will be the worst U.S. corn harvest in at least a decade. Let's explore this a little bit more. Now, this has been as a result of the drought that we've seen throughout the United States. Farmers, agricultural economists, and others are taking stock of this summer's growing season, and they're saying the drought conditions and extreme weather have wreaked havoc on many row crops, fruits, and vegetables, with the American Farm Bureau Federation suggesting yields could be down by as much as a third compared to last year. Now listen, that corn crop is all important because corn is the base of our food chain. We feed livestock, we feed chickens, we feed pigs, we feed all that stuff, cows. A lot of those animals are in situations where they're eating corn or a corn derivative of some sort. And so if it costs more to feed that pig, well, at the end of the day, that pack of pork chops is going to realize a higher cost. Also, don't forget, ethanol is an additive in gasoline. So as we see corn become more scarce, then you've got food products competing for corn. You've got ethanol competing for corn. In the United States, we are deriving our ethanol from corn, whereas in Brazil, they derive it from sugarcane. So corn is just so vitally important. I think a lot of people miss exactly how vital it is to our food chain. Run through a couple of quick ones here. Shipments of carrots are down 45%. Shipments of sweet potatoes down 13%. Celery down 11%. Peach production down 15%. Almost 3/4 of all U.S. farmers say that this year's drought is hurting their harvest. So this is a phenomenon that is caused in part by weather and in part by us coming off of supply chain disruptions because of the events of 2020. We're still recovering. You cannot shut down a multi-trillion-dollar economy. You just cannot slam the brakes on something like that and expect that we're just going to, not suffer any repercussions. And then also we've got the triple whammy of the war in Ukraine and the sanctions and the supply chain issues surrounding that. For example, countries like Hungary have just said, for now, we're not going to export any wheat because we need to save it for our own people. They're seeing these disruptions and this scarcity as a big problem, and they don't want to be in a situation where their people can't eat, which is perfectly understandable. Now, we're not the only ones in the United States. We're not the only ones facing drought. Europe is as well. In fact, Paris is saying that their overall crop production will be down 35% in this current season. Agricultural production in Somalia is projected to be down by 80%. In Eastern Africa, the endless drought has already resulted in the deaths of at least several million animals. And the last one I'll hit here before we get into another aspect of this is the UN Secretary General António Guterres has publicly stated that he believes that it's likely there will be multiple famines in 2023. I told you that was the last one, but according to the World Food Program, 828 million people around the world will go to bed hungry each night. Needless to say, that number will soon be much higher. Now, another aspect of this is, they like to say man-caused. Well, another aspect of this is man-caused. If we look over at the Netherlands and their draconian climate regulations, they are pretty much throwing a monkey wrench into one of the world's largest food producers, that being the Netherlands. And they are in the process of seizing land because these farmers cannot meet these absolutely impossible emissions targets. They just can't do it. And so the Netherlands is trying to buy up these properties. Now, look, we did the video the other day about the World Economic Forum, once again, saying that the Earth had too many people, okay? So, again, look, when I was an EMT and I looked at the cardiovascular system, we were studying that, I saw engineering. When I look up into the universe and see the stars and the precision of the planets, I see engineering. And when I see what's going on in the world today with policies that any, eighth grader would look at and say, hey, that's going to cause a problem with regard to feeding human beings, I see engineering, especially if you take into account the statements made by people like Klaus Schwab and people that are, affiliated with him. Now, speaking of Klaus Schwab, he has come out and said that his organization, and I'm sure others, predict a lot of anger. Okay, so they anticipate that people are going to become hungry, because when people can't eat, that becomes a big problem. Now, people are already out protesting in the streets over energy. If they're doing that over energy, they will be doing it over food. Even here in America, where we are, it seems, most susceptible to bread and circus. And right now, inflation, corruption, all of the things that's going on. America, we're all like,
Are you ready for some football?
but even here, if you can't feed your children, then that's a problem. So, old Klaus is forecasting anger.
So we have to prepare for a more angry world. And how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world.
And this is part and parcel as to why the United States current administration is really focused on quashing the Second Amendment, okay? Because it is there. You can read the Constitution for yourself. As a check against tyranny, all right? And if you can't eat because of regulations that you have nothing to do with, then I would say that's quite tyrannical, wouldn't you? So this is where we are, people. Again, I encourage you, stock up. I encourage you, take some of your own food production and food security into your own hands and start to study agriculture, start to study ways to preserve food, and start to plan. Because, look, these are facts, okay? And if you've got France saying 35% of their overall crop production is going to be disrupted, then, hey, look, I mean, come on, you've got to figure that at some point you're at least not going to have availability. And if you do, it's going to be at elevated prices that will result for most people in being able to eat less, okay? Especially these senior citizens on fixed incomes. I feel so sorry for them because they are really, really getting hit. I was at the supermarket the other day behind a lady, and she didn't have a lot. And man, oh man, she was sweating that bill when the cash register, when they rung it up. She had some comments about it, and I could definitely understand it, because when we go to the store, it's just two of us, but now $40, yeah, right. Try 80, okay? That's purchasing us the same amount of stuff. And we're not in here eating caviar, okay? All right, guys. So what I would like you to do now is take a look at this video right here. We're talking about the defense sector and how Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, has gone over and given Ukraine even more money, okay? Taxpayer dollars, giving them even more. And how, if you're an investor, how you may want to look at that situation. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.